So guys, if you're interested in how I basically built these animations and page transitions using Next.js and the view transition API, please stick around. So disclaimer, I haven't done this before, so you might notice some kind of like issues with the animations. It's not really too smooth. So to do this, we're going to be using the MDN docs to learn how to make use of the view transition API. And yeah, so I had to do a little bit of reading on the MDN docs, and what I basically learned is that to perform animations on pages and on components using whether it's a server component or a client component, whatever it is, the page transition, I can basically do all of that using CSS and the view transition API, which is natively built into the browser, and it's gonna let me write less JavaScript code and more CSS, which means my web applications are going to be a lot more performant. And yeah, so let's just dive into this. Yeah, so and one more thing is that view transition APIs is not fully supported in most browsers like Firefox. It's okay on Chrome and on the iOS Safari, which is awesome. So I basically imported my images from a data directory and link from nestlink, start transition, and use state from React.js. And then I have a type called image, which has a key of URL string and a key of index number. And then I'll declare a use state hook, which takes in the default of null, but could also accept an image type as well. I do have here the handle select image function, which takes in an image type or null as a parameter and sets the selected image state. Now, keep in mind that whenever you're performing a transition animation, you have to use the start transition from React.js. Here I do have the images, which is basically the Mansory layout displayed on the home page. So I'm basically going to be looping through the images gotten from the data directory right here. And then I pass the onClick event handler to each image using the handle select image function that takes in an object of URL as source and the index, which is then used to basically set the state of the selected image. Next off, I'm going to perform a conditional rendering by removing the overlay image from the DOM when selected image is false and displaying the selected image when selected image is true. Then I use the URL from the selected image state as the source. Now this is where the magic basically happens, but I'll get into this in detail later. So I assign the CSS view transition name to a value of popup to the style attribute. Now for each image that pops up, I want to link them to another page. So I basically used a link tag from Next.js to pass the gallery details route with a route params using the image index. And as you can see, I also have the view transition name with a value of popup text, but we'll save this for later. And we have a p tag with dummy lorem ipsum text, and below I do have a div tag which is empty. It's kind of like an overlay, a dark overlay that stays on top of the image as well. Now let's go over the gallery details page where we pass the ID as a route parameter. So this is basically a server component, and I'm receiving params from the destructured params and awaiting it to get the ID. I then have a link tag with an icon right below the bottom right corner of the page, which takes me back to the home page. Here I have my image displayed using the index gotten from the params, and I still have the view transition CSS property here, and an h1 tag that shows the title of the image and a lorem ipsum dummy text in a p tag. So let's test this out. I'll click an image to show the overlay. If you notice, there are no animations done with the view transition API yet. We only have some Tailwind utility classes that performs the little opacity animation you're seeing right now. So I'm just going to navigate to the other page. Still no animations. However, this is so fluid and fast whenever I switch between pages. Now to the juicy part. Let's make use of view transition API to perform animations across multiple pages and animations using conditional rendering on different components. And then I import unstable view transition as view transition from React, which is then used to wrap my children. Now let's see if this works. So I'm going to click an image to see the pop-up animation done with the View Transition API. It doesn't work. It doesn't even pop up. Why? Well, remember the View Transition name property we assigned a value of pop-up to? Yeah, right. We haven't declared the pseudo element for View Transition old and new using the exact value on the View Transition name. So what does the pseudo element View Transition old and new even mean? The View Transition old is basically a static snapshot of the old view before the transition, while the View Transition new is a live presentation of the new view after the transition. It's kind of like making a transition between the old and the new state. To do this, we basically use CSS animations using the pseudo element for the old and the new view transition to perform the effect. As you can see in my global.css file, I have the pseudo element view transition old and new, which both takes in a parameter of pop-up given in the view transition name CSS property previously seen. Now, this is going to perform the animation whenever the components mount and unmount using the keyframes above. Similarly, the same thing is being done for the text that slides up and down. Let's see this in action. So I'm just going to click through the image. Yeah, cool. And then I'm going to navigate to a new page. Awesome. Really super fast. As you can see, the animation will always rerun whenever I mount or unmount a page or a component. Lastly, if you're using Next.js 15 point whatever, make sure you do add this in your Next.js.config file. I guess it's because view transition is still unstable and experimental. So guys, if you found this video very helpful, kindly leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, happy coding.